As soon as its snazzy intro cutscene kicks in, you can tell that Mario vs. Donkey Kong, a remake of 2004's Game Boy Advance puzzle platform classic, doesn't intend to reinvent any wheels whatsoever. It fully and faithfully recreates the 20-year-old original's opening movie, albeit with a new lick of paint, and then moves swiftly on to serve up modernized versions of all the levels you've played if you've been through these before. Yep, we've been spending plenty of time getting acquainted with Mario's latest re-adventure over the past week or so, and 4 worlds in, it's pretty much as expected for the Plum Plumber thus far. This is an exacting retread in how it serves up levels that stick to the layouts, enemy positions, and traversal options of its source material. Nothing much has changed here in terms of the core mechanics, puzzles, and so on that make the bulk of the game, which is a good thing when the source material is so delightfully addictive. Of course, it's not all rehearsed levels, far from it in fact. There are now 2 entirely new worlds to get stuck into, and that brings the total number of courses up to a generous 130. There's also local co-op, much more on that in a bit, a casual setting for those who want to chill to the max, and even a new time attack mode thrown in for good measure. And all of this is on top of tougher plus levels and challenges that'll open up once you've done your first playthrough. Now, unfortunately, we're not allowed to discuss the new worlds just yet, so you'll have to wait for a full review to find out what goodies await you in Slippery Summit and Merry Miniland. Before we dig any further though, let's rewind for those who are new to the party. The original Mario vs. Donkey Kong was a clever expansion of the core gameplay found in 1994's excellent Donkey Kong on the Game Boy, itself a huge expansion to the basic setup of 1981's Donkey Kong Arcade. Donkey Kong has stolen a bunch of minifigures from Mario's toy factory, and it's up to you to gather them up again by bounding through levels that are split into 2 areas. You'll need to find a key to open a door in the first section, which then gives way to another area where the mini Mario you're after sits ready to be collected. Each level is populated by a variety of colorful enemies, who can't be stomped on in the usual Mario manner, but can be picked up and thrown, alongside various items that can also be chucked about to see off foes and reach ledges. There's also the usual mix of spikes, ropes, shifting blocks, moving platforms, and all the environmental obstacles and invention that you'd expect from a typical 2D Mario joint. It's up to you then to traverse these delightfully tricky little mazes by utilizing the Italian's various jumping techniques. There is a slower pace than you'll be used to here if you've played the mainline Mario games, and focusing in on how Mario employs different jumps for different challenges, even more so than regular games do, gives this spin-off its own unique vibe. It's more relaxed, purposeful, and focused on small challenges rather than running a gauntlet of tricks and traps at full pelt. As you can see from the video, and if you remember these various original worlds in detail, you'll spot it straight away. Everything in Mario vs. Donkey Kong is pretty much as when we played it back in the day. Everything except for a quite glorious paint job here that brings it all in line with the most modern adventures through the Mushroom Kingdom. We've been dipping in and out of this new remake and the original to compare and contrast, and although they play the same, it really does make a big difference to the experience overall to be able to take in these worlds with so much added clarity and detail. Each world in Mario vs. Donkey Kong has its own theme, you know the drill, and if you're playing solo, you may find yourself surprised, given the game's very kid-friendly vibe, that there are some rather decent challenges to be had as you progress through these worlds. Fear not, this is still a fairly chilled game overall, and the new casual mode is there to make it even more so, with checkpoints and an unlimited timer. But there's definitely enough to warrant the real showpiece addition to this remake: cooperative play. We had just assumed that the second player here would take a very minimal role, as Nintendo has previously added options to get family and friends involved that gave them precious little to do or control. However, what we've played with a pal so far in Mario vs. Donkey Kong has really benefited from having 2 people working together to make it through the game's levels before the timer runs out. When you add the second player, these levels will generate a silver key alongside the regular gold one that you'll need to open the door. This way, each player has their own goal. Either player can collect either key, interact with every enemy, and so on, and you'll always respawn after an accident as long as your partner is still alive. There are also a few new obstacles thrown in this mode, with crumbling platforms and such, making for new challenges as you attempt to stick together and clear a stage. This remake also sticks to the original layout of how worlds flow throughout the original, giving you 6 basic levels to work through one at a time. You'll get a shiny gold star for gathering all presents in each one. These are then topped off by a stage that see you guide mini Marios throughout a gauntlet of obstacles as they mirror your movements, and a good old boss battle against Donkey Kong himself to wrap things up. It's simple, intuitive, fun times for the family, and honestly, Mario vs Donkey Kong feels better with a friend along for the ride. Indeed, once the challenge steps up even just a little bit, you'll find that essential teamwork and communication makes for a lot of silly laughs. It's still a great time solo, but it's surprising just how much co-op adds to the fun factor here. Currently, we can't go into any detail about the game's new attack mode or those 2 new worlds, but we are now officially psyched for the full release of this one. The original Mario vs Donkey Kong is a genuinely great spin-off that's been updated here with a bunch of meaningful changes, new modes, and a modern look and feel that should see it top the 2004 original as the best way to experience this particular slice of Nintendo magic. And now with PJ's wonderful words come to a conclusion, I also got to experience this game. Now, I didn't have an opportunity to play this co-op, unfortunately, but I did play through the first 4 worlds single player, and that was really fun. I actually never got around to play this first one. I do own a copy, and I've played the second game loads, but the first one was just lacking in my completed games section. So this remake just comes at a perfect time for me, and I have gone into the original to just compare and see what PJ was saying, that it is just exactly the same thing, but with updated visuals and so on. And it really is an impressive job what they've done here. I've said this before in another video, but this feels like the exact same treatment they gave Super Mario RPG, where they stick very faithfully to the original material, but just giving it a really nice updated look. I think my favorite thing about this game is the gameplay loop. It's just so fun that every level has 2 sections. You have to find the key and a mini Mario, and while doing so, you have to find these presents to 100% these levels. And on top of the awesome gameplay loop, we also have fantastic controls. Mario has a lot of variety in his moves, and it's just really fun. It reminds me a bit of how in Mario Odyssey, you can just basically get to sections you weren't supposed to if you know the right moves. I don't know, there's just these certain type of games where you're like, yes, this just works, and this is one of those games. It's really fun, and I can definitely recommend this for anyone who was on the fence about it. Alright then, that was everything from PJ and myself. Don't forget to check out our website nintendoLife.com, where you can find previews like these but in written form. Stay safe, play the original Mario vs Donkey Kong games while you wait for this one, and we'll see you in the next one. Felix from Nintendo Life, out.